Historically, Romania was formed from three big principalities, namely Moldova, Transylvania and Wallachia. This time we visited only the famous cities of Transylvania. Initially, we had next plan to visit three pearls of Transylvania – Brasov, Sibiu and Sigisoara. But reality has made corrections. We did not drive to Sibiu, but instead spent the whole day in Abla-Iulia. We don't really regret about it. In general, if you want to see beautiful medieval cities, then you can go to Prague or Brasov and Sigisoara. After them, you may find that you have looked at almost all typical Central European medieval cities, with narrow streets and houses with red roofs. The first city we saw in Romania was Brasov, the biggest historical Transylvanian city. I cannot say that we walked a lot in it. We arrived in the evening, settled in the hotel, walking around the city to the restaurant where we had dinner, and then we went to bed. We walked around the city a little further on next morning. We wake up before 8, which is still very early for tourist cities. At this time Brasov is empty, only McDonald's works. But we saw how a specially trained person clears a fountain. And by the 12th we left Brasov. That is, we spent the evening and morning in it. But we had enough time to look the city. Interestingly, in German, the city is called Kronstadt. This is because the city was founded by the German colonists who gave it the name of the crown. The name later turned into Kronstadt, that is, the city of the crown. The name Brasov, in turn, was formed from the name of local river Barsa. And yet, over the course of 10 years, during the reign of communists, Brasov was called Orasul Stalin, or the city of Stalin. One of the very unusual places of Brasov is the Rope Street, or Strada Sforia, one of the narrowest streets in Europe. Its width varies between 111 and 135 centimeters. Interestingly, we lived in two houses near the street, but we could only find it in the morning, and only with the help of the navigator. Another attraction of Brasov is the Lutheran Black Church, or the Church of St. Mary, built by Teutonic Saxons. The church received its name after the fire after the Turkish invasion in 1689, but officially the name was caught on only in the 19th century. The modern building is not the first on this place. It is built on the ruins of more ancient Roman church, which was destroyed during the Great Turkish Invasion in 1241. Black Church is the largest Gothic building in southeastern Europe. It can accommodate as many as 5,000 people. Maybe we did not give Brasov enough time. I think there can be an interesting walk all day long. But Brasov is only 900 kilometers from Kiev, so we'll have the opportunity to get there again within the 3 days of tour. From Brasov we drove to Bulgaria. We had two options, either the wide road DN73 or through the mountains by the road DN1E. Of course, we chose the second road and didn't regret. This road led us to the city of Rishno, where the same citadel is located. The citadel is very old. It was built by the Teutons at the beginning of the 13th century. Unfortunately, at this time it was raining. Therefore, we didn't have a desire to climb the mountain and walk around the citadel. But the internet recommends still look at it. An interesting legend is also associated with the citadel. During the Turkish siege, it was required to dig a well. This task was put to two captive Turks. They were promised to let go after they dig a well. The prisoners took as many as 17 years to complete this task, but they were executed anyway. Then we drove to the Bran castle. At this time there was no rain, so we decided to look at the castle. Castle Bran is primarily known as the Dracula castle. The internet says that Dracula himself had even visited it, but not for long and not known as a guest or prisoner. But the castle is very advertised and it is one of the most popular places in Romania. But we didn't like it, and here is why. At one say, taking audio guide is not necessary. All the necessary information can be read in each room. The audio guide just repeats. The exposition itself is not very impressive either. Just a lot of different scenes, but almost no interesting stories. For example, one of the rooms is called the game room only because of the fact that there are set tables for playing cards. But in fact it was a guardian's room. And there are many tourists here. We even got into a people traffic jam. A bit of fortress history. It's known that the residents of Brasov built this castle at their own expense in the 14th century. After his construction, they promised to restore rights to certain fairs. The castle itself is located on the strategic pass. He was one of the border castles of Transylvania. The castle is now private and owned by the Habsburg family. If Brasov was the first city we saw in Romania, then Sigisoara was the last city in Romania that we saw before driving home. Sigisoara is much smaller than Brasov, and we had less than a half of a day to explore the historic center and visit the museum. Additionally, the historic center is entirely part of the UNESCO World Heritage Site. An interesting fact: Vlad Tepes, Dracula, was born in Sigisoara. We like the historic center. It so happens that it is divided by relief on the lower and upper parts. The upper part is a church on the hill, as well as one of the oldest schools in Transylvania. In order to get there, we must climb wooden covered ladders known as scholars' stairs. They were built in 1642 to make it easier for people to get to school in bad weather. One of the main attractions of Sigisoara is the 64-meter clock tower. The tower was built in the middle of 16th century. It now also houses a local historic museum. It is unfortunately impossible to climb to the top of the tower not through the museum. A panoramic view of Sigisoara opens from above. Not everything, but the bottom part. There are also signs with the distance from the tower to various outstanding cities, including Kiev. In general, Sigisoara is a small city. We arrived there about 12, and before the evening we saw the historic center, went to the museum, launched the drone, went to the supermarket and returned to the hotel. There is nothing to do more than one day. At first, we didn't plan to stop at Abla-Iulia, but then I thought that it was very different from other medieval cities. It is also located just behind Transalpina. Moreover, when we arrived there, we liked the apartment so much that we decided to stay there all day and walk around the city. Abla-Iulia, probably one of the oldest cities what we visited. It was founded by the Romans. The 13th legion housed there. The city was called Apollo at that time. The legion had to defend the Roman colonies. The region was attractive to the Romans because salt deposits were nearby. But in the 271st year, the legion, under the onslaught of barbaric tribes, left the city and it collapsed for a very long time. The city was resettled around the 10th century and it received its name in honor for the local governor Gyul and the white stones of which it was built. Abla-Iulia is literally translated as Julius' White City. Starting from the middle of 16th century, the city received a new life and is rapidly growing. For nearly 150 years it was the capital of the Transylvanian Principality. The main attraction of the city is Alba Carolina Fortress. It occupies the whole historic city center. The fortress was built at the beginning of the 18th century. It was a strategic point for protecting the Habsburg Empire from the Ottoman Empire. There is also a tourist road through all 7 gates of citadel. Also, every day about 12 there is guard change ceremony. On Fridays and Saturdays the ceremony also at 9 p.m. We had time to look at its part. Alba Carolina is an example of Vauban fortress. This type of fortifications is named in honor of French military engineer Sébastien Le-Péter de Vauban. The appearance of such bastion fortress related with the artillery improvement. Previous typical fortifications, walls and towers, very poorly stood against artillery fire. Thus a new type of fortress was formed, which in the 17th century brought to perfection by Vauban. Another important monument is the Coronation Cathedral. It was specially built for the coronation of great Romania King Ferdinand and his wife Mary. Interestingly, stone blocks, processed by the Romans, were used for the building of the cathedral. In general, almost the entire center located in the citadel was partially built from Roman materials, and this greatly interferes with archaeological researches. Alba-Iulia generally stands out among other cities in Transylvania, such as Brasov, Sigisoara, Sibiu. On one side it's more modern, and from another even more ancient. But again, half of a day is enough to see everything, as well as go to the museum. Here are Romanian cities which we visited. The next episode of video report about our trip to Romania and Bulgaria will be dedicated to Bulgaria. It will also complete this video report. Thanks for watching, like video, subscribe to our channel.